You said you wanted as many wins as possible from the remaining games to get the mentality as you want. And Middlesbrough will be a less stop-start game than you had against Wycombe. How do you think this game will pan out? Because it was pretty close last time.
Yeah, it was. And I think on the day we did enough to win the game. I look at us, it came at a time in the season where we had quite a number of injuries at that point in time as well. You look at the team that started that day. So, look, we want to win the game because if we win, we'll go above Middlesbrough in the table, and that's our incentive more than anything else. And as you rightly say, we want to try and win as many games as possible between now and the end of the season. So this Saturday's game gives us the opportunity to do that. We haven't, if we look at our away form, I think there's always room for improvement there, and that's something that we have to try and do between now and the end of the season.
You've talked about the fatigue, and it's great to have a rest, but you must be aware that Stoke have conceded goals in the last 15 minutes of play. Do you think that's due to the nature of the season, or do you think the midfielders and the defenders struggle with fatigue, particularly the older ones, or is it just a combination of all the matches that have come so close together?
I don't think we've conceded goals due to fatigue necessarily. Look, there's always potentially an element of that, but I think that maybe concentration in games has cost us at times later in the game. You look at, and possibly when we've had situations where we've been in the head in the game and the opposition have got level, and then we've not been able to go again to either win the game or we've lost a goal and lost the game. Brentford was probably a good example of that. So, yeah, I mean, if we look at the physical data on the team, there's no significant difference between the first half and the second half. More often than not, the output of the players is bigger in the second half, individually and collectively. So I don't think so. I don't think that would be a factor. I just think that maybe when we've lost, teams have possibly made good options off the bench, had stronger options off the bench to come on and win the game. And ultimately, that's what's cost us in the end, rather than sort of putting it down to saying, well, we have so many players that we feel are at the latter stages of their career or age is a factor. I wouldn't necessarily pinpoint that.
Well, talking about stats and data, Tommy Smith's impressed since he's returned. Do you think you missed his overlapping and his accurate deliveries whilst he was out?
Yeah, I think we had to make a decision on what we felt we needed at that point in time. I think Nathan Collins came into the team and did extremely well, a young player playing, and we felt like Nathan realistically would benefit from playing at right back as opposed to centre back. He obviously played right side at centre back and a back three in a number of games as well. Tommy's a different type of player. He's a more attack minded right back. Hence, he's when we've played with three at the back, Tommy's been the first choice right wing back in that situation. So yeah, look, Tommy brings a different dimension to the team, and we want our fullbacks to go forward and affect the game and link with the wide player in front of them when we've played that system. And I think since he's come back into the team, Tommy's done that very well.
And how's the injury situation? Presumably some people have got over niggles and knocks in this week.
Well, any of the ones that were out last week are still going to be out this week. So that hasn't changed. The likes of Clucas, McLean, Fox, for example. Obviously, Collins and Campbell are longer term, so none of them will be back. And we've one or two concerns. Missed training today. Norrington, Davis, Cousins and Vokes all were absent from training today, just with one or two little niggles that they've picked up this week in training.
But Rabbi Matando and Danny Bart are fighting fit again?
Yeah, Rabbi's fine. He's trained all week. And Danny's fine. Like, obviously, we had him on the bench last week and we didn't want to use him unless we had to with the nature of the cut in his head. But he's trained this week and he has protective headgear if necessary. So he was fine. Danny was keen, as Danny always is. He's keen to play last week. But I think it was a good decision that we didn't have to use him, just given that the wound was still obviously very fresh and that he had still stitches, and I think he's in a better place this week to obviously be considered to play.
And last one from me, you're up against Neil Warnock, who still keeps going even though he's 72. Can you still see yourself being a management when you reach that age in maybe 20, 25 years' time?
No, definitely not. Certainly, I don't envisage that. That will be. I mean, I have to commend Neil and any of the managers that have that, continued drive and that appetite for the game at that age is terrific. And so I think I admire how they continue to keep going. And I don't really have a timeline on how long I'll stay in the dugout. I would like to think at that age I'll be involved in football in some capacity, but I'm not convinced I'll be in the dugout.
Thank you, Michael. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, and George, if we could rattle through your
no problem at all. Michael, you've already alluded to the fact that you want to win every game, and there's enough points on the board realistically. Stoke are in 10th position at this moment in time, and realistically, I suppose if everything fell into place, you could still move into the top 6.
Well, yeah, look, that's a target, but it's not something that we're going to state in terms of say we're going to win every game to be in the top 6. We know roughly what points total you would need to get there. You're probably going to have to be 70 plus points, which would require us to achieve 22 points or more from the remaining fixtures that we have. But the most important thing is that we win as many games as possible. I look at the league, and my biggest frustration is that we haven't put enough winning runs for long enough on the board, and that's what we want to try and put in place, as I said, in these remaining fixtures.
You had a number of clean sheets this season, Michael, but sometimes the goal against column can be not what you want, and you'd look to improve that, won't you?
Well, yeah, look, you want to concede as few as possible. I look at teams above us in the league, and in many cases, they've not scored that many more than us. Swansea are a good example of that. But they've conceded fewer. But I think given the number of clean sheets we've had, my disappointment is more that we probably haven't won more of those games. And that's, where suddenly you look at possibly 5 or 6 of those draws and possibly, they could have easily been 5 or 6 wins with a little bit of quality to win the game, or, that always striving to improve in the final third of the pitch is where we're consistently looking to improve. And I think that's the teams who are above us because they've either got like someone who scored significant goals, like an Ivan Toney or a Jow at Reading, as examples of that, or they've conceded fewer, which is Swansea's kind of model to be in the top 6, where they've not had maybe the prolific scorer and the goals have been shared between Ayew and Jamal Lowe. So, but we want to, try and add to the goals we have, but equally, make sure that we're as tight as we can be at the back. And, that'll give us, that's the recipe, I think, for being a really strong team and having a really strong season.
Finally, for me, you already know Neil Warnock is a feisty character. Whatever team you come up against him, he certainly will be that type and put his opposition, whatever team he's in charge of, Middlesbrough this time round, his teams will certainly compete and give it all the way over the 90 minutes, Michael, won't they?
Yeah, look, of course they will. That's what Neil demands from his players. And look, I think I found out with every coach in this league and every team that we've played, no one's rolled over. There's many teams with many styles of play and different types of managers. There's managers who have come in from overseas to the Championship as well. So there's a lot of variety in the Championship now. Neil's from obviously a more, without older school really, I suppose, and he's managed a long time at this level and been very successful at this level. So there's no successful recipe for the Championship, and Neil's had great success as I mentioned previously, and I'm sure he has aspirations to have that with Middlesbrough. But our concerns about ourselves and how we play, we expect a very, very tough game, and Middlesbrough will be extremely competitive.
Thanks for joining us, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you,
George. Dave, have you got anything for us?
Just one question. I get to ask the important footballing question that nobody else has asked, and of course this is the question probably that Neil Warnock has been asked already about, because he of course made some disparaging remarks when he was last in about our dressing rooms, and he did sort of say, "You wait till Stoke City visit us." So will you be expecting sort of like a luxurious dressing room, or do you think it'll be an outside toilet out the back?
Well, I would expect that we will get the same as every other away team that goes to Middlesbrough. That's basically the protocol as the EFL and the Championship stipulates. Middlesbrough complained about the change in facilities when they came to Stoke. We addressed that situation. We subsequently had Tottenham here, and Jose Mourinho didn't complain about it. So I'm not that bothered really about that situation. If I'm sure we'll manage, and if we have to go changed on the coach to go to the bus or the game rather, then that's what we'll do.